Today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, Beshear looks like might be getting overlooked on the VP ticket. According to one MSNBC article, we'll go over exactly why that might be. The KY Policy think tank publishes a map on where there are private schools and where there aren't as some sort of argument as to why the rural areas of Kentucky should not vote for school choice. I'll go over exactly why this makes absolutely no sense. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't like Trump. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't like Kamala Harris or Biden or Beshear or Shapiro or Gavin Newsom or Hillary Clinton or that guy from across the street, because any of them could become the Democrat nominee. So perhaps, technically anybody can be it. So, but maybe let's say it's Kamala Harris. So you don't like Trump. You don't like Kamala Harris. You're looking for a third option in Kentucky. Well, just so happens you have gotten a third option in Kentucky as a write-in presidential candidate has filed to run in Kentucky. We'll go over just who this is and go over their very exhaustive and intense platform and see if that's the kind of person you really, really want to vote for. Because, having those options is important. So let you know about that. We'll have all that and more today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. But I say it every day. But the question is, are you doing it every day? Are you leaving that review on the podcast that helps us out? Leave that 5-star review. It's really important. It helps spread the word about the show. It helps the show be shown to more people so that way they can be suggested to check it out in their search functions, in their feeds. The more reviews you have on a podcast, the better it will do. And so taking a moment, leaving a 5-star review would be very helpful. But let's say you're somebody who listens to this show and you want to leave a 1-star review. Let me tell you what, don't do that. We don't need your reviews. Actually, everybody knows you hate it. In fact, why don't you do this? You write it down on a piece of paper and you mail it to me, and we will take that into consideration. And then finally, as always, if you want to reach out to the show, go ahead and email info@theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's info@theandrewshow.com. You can also head over to theandrewshow.com and shoot me over an email there on the contact tab. So lots of options for you. But without further ado, let's dig down into it. This from MSNBC. The Harris campaign contacts 5 Democrats in search for a running mate. These include North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Governor Josh Shapiro, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and Governor Tim Walz. You'll notice that Governor Andy Beshear is not on the list. And those of you who've listened to the show knew that from early on, I kind of called out that it'd probably be somebody more like Roy Cooper or Josh Shapiro. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible Beshear ends up getting picked. It's just simply put that North Carolina and Pennsylvania are states in play. They're in flux, right? And so if Roy Cooper or Josh Shapiro are willing to go ahead and say, yeah, we'll be thrown onto the ticket to help you win these states, if they're willing to, or Michigan too, Gretchen Whitmer, if they say, if we will help you win these states, because these are, up for grab states, these are battleground states, and so that will help us deliver it. Grabbing Beshear from Kentucky, though, I don't understand how that would help you in the battleground areas. Now, the reason why she most likely, if it's Kamala Harris, of course, this is the VP picks, if she goes with Senator Mark Kelly, I don't think she would necessarily. She kind of has the whole legislature thing handled based upon the fact that she was a prior legislator. She has that relationship. Remember, when people are picking their VPs, it's for either a blind spot they have within their administration that they need help with. So in Trump's case, the fact that J.D. Vance is coming from the legislature is really important because Trump doesn't have as much experience with the legislature. And by putting somebody who's a senator in there, they become president of the Senate. If the Senate becomes a split Senate, their vote really matters. And then they know how to better outmaneuver people like Mitch McConnell and get the Trump agenda passed. So it makes a lot of sense why you would want to go with a legislator, specifically a senator. For Kamala Harris, she has that legislative background. So for her, she'd be more so looking at these battleground states saying, can I pull somebody in that ends up delivering that opportunity for us to win one of these battleground states? Now, there is some other people she could possibly be looking at. Pritzker has come up. He's very wealthy, provides an unlimited source of money, of course, into the campaign. That could be helpful. So it's either money or battleground states you're looking at. I've said Roy Cooper makes the most sense out of North Carolina because you definitely want maybe a more southern governor, moderate governor to kind of bring in some of those Rust Belt states. And like I said, Beshear just really doesn't necessarily deliver anything to the ticket. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't end up being it, but he doesn't really deliver anything to the ticket. And of course, it's kind of funny because, we've seen everybody trying to push for Beshear to be that vice presidential candidate amongst the media here in Kentucky, and seeing the fact that it may not happen based on current moves is kind of funny. But, that won't stop Andy Beshear. He will run for president, I'm sure, here in 2028. Of course, I think he'll run. Nobody wants Trump to win more. If Beshear doesn't get picked up as the VP, he will want Trump to win more than like anybody else. And it's not as if Beshear being thrown onto the ticket is suddenly going to win Kentucky. Barely anybody shows up to vote in the governor elections, and Kentucky has voted red in their national elections now for over 20 years. So, and some people have talked about Beshear using this to be a springboard into running for Senate. Personally, I don't really see that per se. Even running for Senate, I think, would be very difficult for Beshear, especially with the way he's behaving right now. He's getting that national spotlight. He's putting aside kind of the folksy, let's not be partisan thing. And instead, he's becoming a lot more of an attack dog. It's clearly a fish out of water kind of thing. He seems a little uncomfortable, definitely rehearsed with it. And I don't think that necessarily goes over well with some of the people in Kentucky as they're seeing how he's doing and how he's also kind of leveraging Kentucky's folklorishness, I guess you'd call it, in order to make him seem special and important. So just something to mention going on with that presidential election. Of course, I mentioned there's another candidate we can look at. We'll be going over that in a bit. But I first want to look at this story from Kentucky Policy. This is a more liberal think tank. Specifically, it's a teachers union kind of think tank. They really just shell out a whole lot of information regarding the schools and the direction that the more liberal individuals would want. Their talking points include, talking about recently on KET, and I talked about this on a show where there's an individual on KET talking about how the schools want to do more for mental health. They just need more money. Of course, we're already spending, on average, $18,000 a student in Kentucky when you combined all sources of funds. But they decided they wanted to go ahead and say the schools could do more. They just need more money, ignoring the fact that they can't even do math and reading well and competently, as our kids are not coming out with the ability to do math or reading. Kentucky has some of the worst educational outcomes in the country. Sure, we graduate high school at one of the highest rates, but these kids come out of high school like not knowing anything at all. Well, Kentucky Policy's at it again, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to push this idea to the rural areas that somehow school choice at the state level will negatively affect them. And their claim and argument for this is going to be showing you a map of where the private schools are and pointing out to these people of eastern Kentucky, of certain parts of western Kentucky, that they don't have access to private schools, which, one, isn't necessarily true, and two, if they don't have access to them and that's not a concern for the community, then school choice won't affect them. Now, there's a reason why KY Policy is going to go ahead and push this so heavily. It's because they're trying to break down coalition building. So right now, for Republicans, if they can get their acts together on this particular amendment, and we are starting to see some good movements, some on-the-ground movements, some doors knocked, some ads being run, so they're starting to get it together. This is a little bit of an uphill battle for the Democrats. Already going into this, according to a lot of polling, support for school choice in Kentucky is like a plus 10 to plus 15 percentage points support versus don't support. And that's because even Democrats support school choice. In fact, nationally, a lot of very liberal states have a school choice system. It's a very weird thing for Democrats to not actually support school choice. You don't see that as often in other areas, but you do see that here in Kentucky. And so, naturally speaking, the plurality of voters in Kentucky are already Republican. So that kind of tilts in their favor if there's a bunch of Republicans coming out saying, hey, vote for this piece of legislation. So we'll see how they're able to capitalize upon that. We'll see if the people running this amendment are able to get enough Republican representatives, senators, potentially vice president, presidential candidate even, somebody like Trump, to go ahead and say something, in support of this amendment to really drive that home. So Democrats are worried about that. But the other thing that they have to be concerned about is in the city areas where Democrats and liberals do typically better, school choice is even more supported according to a lot of polls. And that's because in these areas, they do have a lot of school choice options. And so they're kind of fighting an uphill battle here because the rural areas are Republican. And so if Republicans are able to sell them on supporting it, you got to cut off votes from there. And then it's easier for this amendment to get support out of the city areas, which is typically where Democrats will find support for statewide issues like when they did the abortion amendment. Of course, the other areas performed better for the amendment. Some areas didn't perform as well. But those cities like Louisville and Lexington, even the Republicans in that area voted no on that abortion amendment. And so that kicked it into their direction. But if it goes the other way on this, where even the Democrats in those across the state, specifically in the city areas, are in a lot higher percentage, maybe it still fails, quote unquote, in that area, but it doesn't fail with a good enough percentage to offset the Republicans and the rest of the state, Democrats are in trouble. And so they're trying to build a coalition of voters to be against this amendment. So they're trying to build liberals in the cities and mix that with who would be traditionally conservative and Republican voters out in the rural areas of Kentucky. And so the way they're doing this, and KY Policy is put forward, is saying you all don't have access to private schools. And so this is somehow harmful for you. Now, they're ignoring some very important parts that I think they should probably realize. So either one, they don't have access to private schools, and so there's nothing for the schools to actually worry about here, because what the Democrats are claiming the Republicans will be pushing for is a voucher type system where you get like a voucher from the state for the amount of money that the state spends per child, and you can take that to a private school, which ends up being about $4,400 a year, because that's how kids currently in our K through 12 system are paid by the state. There's something called the SEEK formula. It's about $4,400 a kid, and per child that attends your school, you get $4,400 from the state. And so their claim is that, well, these rural schools will somehow miss out on that money because they will go to private schools, but at the same time, there's no private schools in your area for you all to use, so you should vote against the school choice amendment. That doesn't make sense. Either there are options for these people in rural areas for them to take their kids elsewhere, and that will hurt the public schools, or there are no options. In that case, the public schools aren't hurt. But they're trying to argue both at the same time, because the fact of the matter is that we know in these rural areas that don't have private schools, if a school choice option comes about, there will be people who now open up those options. There will be some people who come along and say, we'll do an age range of students that we will teach per teacher. We will do 15 kids maybe per school, per classroom there, per teacher. And we're out in eastern Kentucky area, let's say, where cost of living isn't that high. 15 kids per classroom, that gives us a $66,000 per classroom allowance. We can afford to pay teachers, $40K a year to be in charge of this area, or even you can even ramp that up to closer to 20 kids per classroom at $4,400 a year. Now that becomes $88,000, so we can pay the teachers $50K a year. And then, take the 10, 15 grand left over and be able to put that into facilities and putting that together. And now you are getting some school choice options in the area that could really be fantastic. And that's if too, you can't afford a private school necessarily because Private schools are 12, 13 grand, but you come in with 4,400, you're in an area with low cost of living. Maybe the tuition ends up being 6,000, but 4,400 of it's already taken care of, so it's only 1,600 a year you need to come up with. You will start to see those options, and they know that. That's a first reason why this argument that KY policy is trying to make, that you won't have options if you're in the rural areas if you vote for this, and only your schools will suffer, is nonsensical, doesn't make sense. Not only does the argument defeat itself, because your schools can't lose money if kids aren't leaving the school. The SEEK formula stays the same under their claim of voucher systems. So that doesn't make sense. But also they're ignoring the fact that a lot of these areas are in fact what you'd call bedroom communities. And so people may live in the area, but they may commute an hour or so to work. And if there is a school choice option where they're traveling to work, they can decide to go ahead and drop their kids off to that option and then go ahead and educate the kids. Now, what the schools know is that actually one of those two options of either schools will open up or people will be able to take their kids to other schools because they already commute to those areas of the state anyways from where they live, is a lot more likely than there won't be any options in the area. And we know because they wouldn't be fighting against this in rural areas if that's not the case. Now, you may say, well, is this good for the region? Of course it is. We have some of the worst educational outcomes in a lot of these rural areas. Having a choice for high quality educational choices is the number one way to break free from some of the poverty cycles that we're seeing there. They have no accountability. Maybe you remember the story in Hazard, Kentucky, where the Hazard High principal was photographed with male students dressed in women's lingerie while twerking and doing lap dances on school officials, backing it up. You had girls in Hooters outfits, dancing all around. You may remember that issue. It happened in 2021, and it was a big deal, perhaps. Like I said, perhaps you remember that story. It's a big national story. Well, the principal there, Donald Happy, was never actually fired. He still works at that school. So what kind of educational outcomes can we expect from an area that can't even fire a principal for having young boys, minors dressed in drag, sexually dancing on him and then not stopping it and seeing anything wrong with what he was doing? Perhaps they need some educational choices in order to hold those types of people accountable, because the school boards certainly aren't doing it. Now, if the school boards actually become aware and afraid that people may seek other educational opportunities, well, now they might start delivering a product to the students of these rural communities that they can actually use to get farther ahead in life and education they can actually build a life off of. But that's not something the KY policy think tank wants to have happen, because of course they want to keep the kids as locked in as possible. They want to keep them stuck there like, a monopoly. Now, lots been going on nationally. You got Donald Trump. He's gotten the nomination. Vice presidential person there's J.D. Vance. Kamala looks like she's going to be getting the presidential nomination there. Who knows who her vice president may be? And maybe you're just tired of it all and you say, I don't want to vote for Donald. I don't want to vote for Kamala Harris. You know who I want to vote for? I want to vote for somebody else. Well, here in Kentucky, you do have a third choice of write-in candidate by the name of Sherunda Fox. That's Cherunda Fox. Now, you may be wondering, how does a person become a write-in candidate for president? Well, Sherunda Fox went ahead and paid $50 and filled out a form and convinced one Harlan McVeigh Jr. to also sign that form, promising to be Sherunda Fox's vice president when she filed as a write-in candidate to run for office in Kentucky. It's just $50. Fill out a form, $50, and you too could be a write-in candidate for Kentucky's presidential ballot. You won't be printed on the ballot, but if people know your name, Sherunda Fox in this case, Cherunda Fox, they can write that name down and your votes would count. Now, you may ask, who is Sherunda Fox? Well, according to their filing, they're out of Detroit, Michigan. I was actually able to find a website, and that is new. Anybody who listens to the show knows I was digging through some of the Kentucky, House races. We'll be getting back into those, of course, here. Probably tomorrow I'll start back with some of those. There's just been a lot going on nationally that I haven't had time to go ahead and cover those, but we'll get back into it. But one of the things that bothers me a lot is, of course, they lack any kind of actual policy positions on their websites. They don't have a website. You know nothing about them. I was able to find Sharonda Fox's website. I didn't need to go too far in. She has a lot on here. And a lot of it's nonsensical and doesn't make a lot of sense here. So I figured maybe I'll share this with you. Maybe Sharonda Fox is your type of candidate. So let's take a look here. So the top of the page starts off with Fox for President. This is what it says. It says, "This is my FEC qualified presidential campaign in 2024. I am honest. I am real. I won't ever steal from you. I'm grateful for your vote and support. Things are looking up. Things are looking up. I like what I'm hearing so far. Let's see what else we got here. No history in this county was made without using name in vain the last 27 years. No history in this county was made without using name in vain the last 27 years. I don't know what that means. Maybe the next sentence can help us out. Let's read the next sentence. Now, I know how God feels about folks taking his name in vain for outrageous financial gain or pain, ... all caps, horrible. Okay? Democrats plus Republicans stole 105,000. There's actually no dollar sign, but it does say 105,000 per man, woman, and American child equals 35 trillion. Still no dollar sign since 1998 to punish American taxpayers for me blessing their jealous politicians who never had any intentions of doing anything but using us. Democrat 20T, Republicans 15T. My divorce program only costs 3T. Thus spend 10 times that on their pet projects, billionaires, and LGBTQ, ignoring their only mandate of divorce laws. All 435 House Representative members are up for election, 33 U.S. senators, and we need a new president, me. I'll be issuing a monopoly to finally achieve divorce laws we've been waiting on since 1995. So she is literally talking about divorce law. So her most important thing to her is divorce law. She feels she needs to become president in order to deal with that. She does say I will be issuing a monopoly to finally achieve divorce laws we've been waiting for. I don't know who we is in that sentence. I don't know if she's got a mouse in her pocket. I know I'm not in the we category. I know when I'm thinking about the president, I'm not thinking about divorce laws. And it literally goes on like this, talking about divorce, economics, something that makes no sense, on and on and on. And I don't see any kind of train of thought that makes sense. But this isn't her only portion. She does have more to her website. And I felt one was particularly worth talking about. And she has this section that says, a brighter future for all Americans is just around the bend in the Fox administration. In my political opinion, the power and prestige associated with the office of president was made for and will be respected by me. I want, deserve, and will have the presidency for myself. I want, deserve, and will have the presidency for myself, Fox says. And then she's got some points here that I just thought were interesting, worth mentioning. Al Gore never made it to the White House, although he was a shoo-in. Well, he never made it there, so clearly he wasn't a shoo-in. Bush was humiliated and replaced by a gay black man and his black transvestite wife. I believe Shauna Fox is black herself, just FYI. But funny, she's going into the Michelle Mike conspiracy theory. Very interesting, very interesting. Let's see what else she believes here. Barack was replaced by Trump, a toddler, one and done. Barack was humiliated. Michelle can't enjoy gay rights because they lied to the American voters about their true LGBTQ status. Clinton and Trump were impeached. Bill Clinton spoke with me personally at Michigan State University alone before a rally. He asked me to bring my 9 5-year-old daughters and newborns. The way that's wrote, it's like she was saying she's 9 5-year-old daughters, but I believe she's saying she has a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old daughter, and a newborn son. I guess he wanted to see my kids and me, a triple minority student, the only one on the honor roll in law school, 94th out of 100, before he collapsed our next 30 years into the future. So apparently Shonda Fox was on the honor roll at law school and was top of her class, which I find hard to believe based upon the writing style here, but I guess possible. Probably not. Anyways, goes on to say, afterwards he told Hillary plus Paulette, I had no future, they were distraught, and so far I haven't. Neither have the Clintons politically. I had Barack throw Hillary a bone in 2008 for the kindness she showed me, but nothing before or since. So she personally had Barack Obama help Hillary out in 2008. She claims. Strange. Trump is facing 641 years. It's interesting, okay? Barack Obama has 2 children with my niece, Caleb 7 and Isabel 9. So, now this is getting deeper, okay? Not only is she into the Michelle Mike Obama thing, which, fascinating. Not only does she believe that she personally asked Barack to throw Hillary a bone, but now she's also claimed that Barack Obama has 2 kids with Shonda's niece, which is fascinating. Goes on to say that Michael/Michelle is trying to destroy my personal family behind it. Only one problem, she needs my permission through my ballot, so nope. No clue what that means, but okay. I took Michelle's power to pass laws, spend money when I gave the House to Kevin McCarthy in 2023. After 9 months of Kevin ignoring me, he was removed on 10/3/23 for being ungrateful. So Shonda believes Shonda's a real player here, okay? Shonda thinks that she personally is the one who gave Kevin McCarthy the House in 2023, and because Kevin ignored her, she then removed Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House because he was being ungrateful to her for giving him the House. I'm almost done here. Maui burned to the ground. Biden's impeachment is going forward. Harris's should be also. Hunter Biden is having his legal dealings displayed. He stalled on paying child support for his daughter, 4-year-old Navy, while Hunter was charged on federal gun charges for lying on his gun application and his sweetheart deal that would have protected him if his dad lost in 2024, put in the trash. Hunter was also indicted in California yesterday, his dad's Vice President Kamala Harris's home state. How did that happen? Kamala backstabbing again. Whoa. That is some pretty intense stuff. I'm kind of making fun of Shonda, but it sounds like Shonda really can deliver for the people. She apparently has been a major political player we've never heard of. She's never been mentioned before, but she is making things happen. And so if you don't like Trump, you don't like Biden, Sharunda is an option. Miss Fox here is an option. She does have actual policy, though. So if you're like, okay, well, those are just some ramblings, right? I like some of what I hear, hate some of what I hear, maybe is what you're thinking. But you have an open mind. You're like, might be better than Kamala Harris or Trump still. You might be thinking that. Well, let's go over to her policy positions article. She has 8. One is the Bureau of Divorce Affairs. Second is our nation's schools. Third is our $31 trillion debt. 4 is Buy America program. 5 is America's Fair Share tax code. 6 is regional minimum wage. And then 7 is why are you so popular with the voter? 8 is what are you good qualities, Sharunda Fox. And Bureau of National Divorce, she wants to create a Bureau of National Divorce that really deals a lot with helping women through divorce, helps them relocate, does their divorce for them. She thinks the way the divorce system is set up is destroying our country, and therefore she's going to set up a Bureau of Divorce to help make sure that happens. And And that is fascinating to me to hear all about, divorce. It was an interesting read. Maybe you can read it yourself. It's pretty long. I'm not going to go into it, but clearly this woman has been through some divorces. Can't imagine why. She seems like a real peach. I can't imagine why any man would ever leave this woman. I can't see it. I don't know why they would, but apparently someone made that horrific and horrible decision to leave Sharunda Fox, and Sharunda Fox is determined to win the presidency and create a bureau of divorce to help people like her and others out through their divorces, because she's a lovely woman who should have never been divorced, is her current position. Now, she does have other positions I mentioned. They are some real humdingers. Let me help you out here. So here's one of them. Our K through 12 kids. I will update our schools. $16,000 per student. The upper end public schools only spend $15,745. The cost to the taxpayer, nothing. There will be specialty elementary schools who train doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, skilled trades, etc. with local school board input. Schools will be able to build $1 million science labs, hire law professors, whatever's needed. So her plan is kind of like, if you've ever seen, like Divergent, if you've ever read those books or seen that movie, or really any kind of dystopian novel at all. The Giver, I think that's another one. I guess it's kind of like the book Anthem by Ayn Rand, where the government just kind of picks your job for you when you're an elementary school student and then just trains you up in that for the rest of your life. You have no freedom of choice there, because she says there will be specialty elementary schools who train doctors and lawyers and accountants. So I guess the hope is by the time you're 18, you're 20 or something, you can go ahead and be a doctor or a lawyer. You don't have to go through college. Maybe, I don't know, but very fascinating things. Here's another policy position of Sharunda Fox. Our national debt. I will pay our $31 trillion national debt. That's very generous of Sharunda Fox to pay that herself. Anyway, she goes on to say, based on revenue and budget projections, we have a substantial amount to place towards the national debt. Everyone will pay their fair share. I feel relieved already. In those 3 sentences, she has done more to address our national debt and to conceptualize the problem more than anybody else I've ever seen. Truthfully, she is a savant when it comes to policy. She's got a Buy America program where she wants to give, I guess, some sort of tax credit program to people who buy American. She does give us an example, really helps sell this to me, where she says, I purchased a refrigerator made in America recently. I would receive a tax credit from the federal government for that. That is her example. So I guess you buy a refrigerator and she then receives a tax credit for that. She's horrible at grammar, so that's the way it's wrote. She wants a regional minimum wage. Her tax code, she wants the Fox administration implementing a fair share tax program. That is literally all she says about her tax code. She never says what a fair share is, but she's an option. Regional minimum wage, she says that it's not as expensive to live in Detroit as is in LA or New York, so minimum wages should be based upon area of the country. There's no period at the end of that sentence, so I assume it just goes on forever. Why are you so popular with the voters? She responds by saying, I am the voter. What are your good qualities? Honesty. Any bad ones? I'm thinking. I can think of one, Sharunda Fox, your inability to conquer the written English language with proper grammar, so that way I can understand a single thing of what you're exactly trying to say. I've put together bits and pieces. I think I've figured it out, and I got to say, for what I'm seeing, the fact that anybody would vote for you, if you get one vote other than yourself, I think we need to have a serious talk with the American people about what they actually believe in, because this is the ramblings of a crazy person. But you too, for $50, could join Sharunda Fox and running for president on the Kentucky ticket as a write-in. Something for you to think about. Well, y'all, that's what we got time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you have a great rest of your day.